Again, I'm Will Leach, and I'm the founder of Trigger Point. We're a behavioral research and design consultancy. And I want to walk you through an incredible journey I had last year with doing behavioral research and design and building a brand from the ground up. So the genesis of this initiative really started off with this random phone call when I was actually doing a behavioral audit in a Safeway in Dallas, Texas. So I'm near the deli area, and I get this call out of the blue. I don't recognize the number. And then the guy on the other end says, I've just come up with an innovative breakthrough in snacking. And he said that it's now we're able to make a healthy chip very, very, very healthy. So he says, I'd like for you to help me build a brand. I said, okay, sounds okay. He says, but it can't just be a healthy brand, it has to be an iconic, preeminent brand, right? Like, okay, I've heard that before. And then he says, and I'm really small. I have maybe 0.1% of the amount of money that a Frito-Lay has. And so I won't be doing any out of home, I won't be doing any radio, I won't be doing any TV. And I want to fundamentally change the way Americans eat, right? Okay, and he says, we don't really have a lot of money to do research either. So at this point, I'm just about to hang up on the guy, right? Because you know, if you're in my field, you get these things as suppliers, right? You get these calls sometimes, and you're like, oh gosh, this is not gonna go well. So I'm actually trying to get off the phone, and the guy actually said something really, to me, was inspiring. He said, I know I'm disadvantaged. I know I've got everything stacked up against me. That's why I think we need to use behavioral science in building this brand. And you don't hear that in my world very much at all. So, wanted to go here and learn a little more about this. The guy on the other end of the phone call is a guy by the name of Phil Kosak. Phil Kosak is a third your crazy uncle, a third Santa Claus, and a third Leonardo da Vinci. Not DiCaprio, da Vinci. This guy literally could be the most extraordinary person I've ever met in my life. I cannot say enough. I wanted him to come up on stage, but he's too busy trying to build a company. Phil came from a very humble background out in Georgia, ended up going, getting through college and getting his PhD in microbiology and another PhD in food science and an engineering degree, his master's in engineering. One of these just incredibly well thought out, but he's still your crazy uncle, right? Phil went to Frito-Lay back in about 1981, I think it was, and went to R&D over at Frito-Lay. And in the first 2 years, he actually designed 27 products and put patents on 27 products at Frito-Lay, and the guy got bored. And so he's in corporate America. He is not a corporate guy. He decides, I want to leave corporate America. He takes off and he goes off to North Carolina where he has no relatives, no friends, nothing else. And he goes builds a company called Carolina Fine Snacks. Carolina Fine Snacks is nothing more than what we call in our industry a co-packer if you're into snacking. They just manufacture products for lots of different brands, lots of different companies. So he's been doing that for about 40 years. He was a guy who came up with Weight Watchers snacking, like invented the products and manufactured and packaged for Weight Watchers, right? So his whole world for the last 40 years has been designing products and producing products for other people. The guy's probably in his mid 60s, late 60s right now. He has a granddaughter. And he starts looking at her and looking at his employees and saying, I want to do more than just build for other people. I want to do it for myself now. He calls it the brass ring. And so what he says is he calls us in, we fly up there to North Carolina, and he says that he wants to leave this legacy to his family, and he also wants to leave this company that he wants to build, this new brand, to his employees. A lot of his employees, in fact, the vast majority of his employees have physical disabilities, and it's just a big passion for his. Like as I'm walking down the hallway in his office, he's not talking about it, but I see him in pictures with the last 4 presidents because he's winning these national awards for the Small Business of the Year thing. So he's just a really, really incredible guy. So we sit down, and after this whole thing around this idea of leaving a legacy, it was a passion project for ours, so we took it on. And the first thing we had to do, as you can imagine, was got to find an audience, right? So that's where we start off with, and we chose millennial moms. It was nothing that had to do with a market analysis or any kind of segmentation. We couldn't afford it. What we could do, though, is look at, this was his daughter, actually, and said, you know what, or very similar to her, we're going to design products for her. He designed the products for her and her daughter, his granddaughter, basically. So we went all in and said, okay, it's going to be the millennial mom is what we're going to go after and try to learn more about the millennial mom. So if you want to understand the basis of all behavioral change, psychological behavioral change, we have a model here, and we can break up behavioral change, whether it's buying a car, buying snacks, getting your kid to eat vegetables. It comes down to 4 different things. First, you have to understand people's goals. This is in the space of jobs to be done or goal theory, right? But you have to understand what people want. Next you want to do is what drives them to go after their goals. That's motivational psychology. You can debate 9 to 11 core human motivations, but we had to identify what that motivation was driving her in this context of snacking. Third, how does she approach that goal, whether that's regulatory fit theory, that's coming at it from a preventative lens or a promotional lens. And lastly, mental models, we call them cognitive biases or heuristics that she uses to make decisions easier, shortcuts. That's behavioral economics 101. The idea here then, if you build your brand, your messaging around these 4 things, you should, if all goes well and you have great design and great marketers, you should be able to create emotional arousal. Neurologically, you'd call it emotional arousal, or psychologically, we call it a hot state. And when people are in a hot state, they're more susceptible to influence. That's why emotional advertising works, guys. When people are emotionally aroused, they're more susceptible to having information come in and kind of change their behavior. So we had to identify these 4 factors. So mind state profiling actually helps you identify these key behavioral factors needed to drive this emotional engagement and influence decisions. It's going to be the basis of our brand and ultimately our communications. So we do this through a RAMP study. And a RAMP study is we call it the RAMP. It's a rapid mind state profiler. It uses a projective-based modified pairwise comparison methodology to identify those implicit drivers of decision making. This is a much more updated version of it, but this is more of a qualitative version that we were doing back with a series of millennial moms throughout 2 different cities. So the idea here is we have to understand what goals is she trying to reach? What motivates her to reach those goals? Again, how does she psychologically approach those goals? And lastly, what mental shortcuts does she use when making decisions? So here's the outcome of this really quickly. We understood her main goal, at least when it comes to snacking, was delicious and nutritious snacks are very real and possible. This was not a case of, I want a better for you snack. Millennials don't believe in having to take a lot of compromises, not ours for sure. And we actually saw this idea of no compromise across more than just snacking. It's actually across life, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes. So we had to activate on that goal we knew in our brand. Next, on the motivations, 3 core motivations came out. First one was autonomy, and this idea of being authentic, real, staying true to yourself, and no need to compromise was a key motivation. Another one was belonging, celebrating diversity and local communities, being a part of something bigger than yourself. And lastly, achievement, this idea of accomplishment and being focused and a desire to feel proud or actually accomplishing things in life. Now, I'll tell you, we actually focused more on autonomy. We found more passion in the autonomy space for her. But there are 3 overall motivations that we could leverage in future communications. On the approach side, we found that she approaches snacking in a promotion regulatory state of mind, which shows the idea is that she wants to be seen or she wants to understand the benefits or the gains of eating healthy without compromise and flavorful versus framing up our brand around there are consequences in life of you having to compromise for taste and health. It sounds like a small nuance. It's a really big deal if you look at Troy Higgins' work and how to frame up your messaging, understanding if people come through it through a risk avoidance motivational state or a promotion or benefits and gains motivational state. So in this case, we knew that we had to frame up our brand in more around the benefits of no compromise. And lastly, there's a couple mental models or these cognitive biases. Endowment effect, the idea that people ascribe more value to things they own. IKEA effect, they ascribe more value to things that they build. And then there's this egocentric bias, which I think is a kind of a funny bias, but because I think we all have it. But the idea is we favor things that benefit us, right? But all that being said, we had to figure out how do we help her make a decision easier, and that's what cognitive biases do, or heuristics or mental models in this case, what we call them. So the idea, with all this research, we're able to uncover what he calls a mind state. And a mind state is just in this moment, in context of thinking about snacking, these are the things that are important to her. It's not a segmentation. It's not a segmentation profile at all. It's much more of any segment, in this case, millennial moms. How does she feel in the moment? And then through this, you're able to do a behavioral activation brief. When I was at PepsiCo and I would do lots of research, ZMed, we do a lot of different types of implicit association work. The issue for us was that we didn't know how to apply this type of research. We didn't have briefings. So we have a behavioral brief here, which just tries to help dimensionalize this for, in this case, our design team at Trigger Point to help understand what are we going to build a brand around. In this case, we wanted to understand things like, or we understand her characteristics, the things like what she's driven to achieve, what she desires, what she values in life, what she believes in, how she behaves, and ultimately her preferences or what she prefers. Behavioral goal. We just talked about that. The motivation, we focused in on autonomy. We know that her regulatory approach is promotion regulatory approach. The emotions to leverage. So when you get design work, it's really important to understand why you're going after the emotion you're going after, because the emotion ties directly back to the motivation. And if you don't have the exact feeling that they're looking for by motivation, and it matters a lot, there's a sense that it doesn't feel fluid. There's this idea of fluency processing fluency, I guess. And the idea that if it doesn't feel right, she may just kind of say, I'll think about it later. So understanding the exact feeling is really, really important. It maps back to the actual motivational state. And then role strategy. What is the role of your brand, and what is the role of her in any future communications? And then from there, you get into things that are a little bit more, it's not working. Can we flip the slide for me, please? There we go. Content tactics. The idea is now you can give, like, behavioral sciences are very prescriptive. They can be very prescriptive in terms of telling designers things to at least consider. So things like highlight the pleasure of success, or show independence of your solution and the customer from others. Emphasize why your solution works. Maybe show cheerful and expectant expressions. Then lastly, mental models. Here's some mental models that I wanted my design team to start thinking about and trying to incorporate into future communications in the design of the brand. And ultimately, a brand narrative story. If you're going to talk to her over time, what is that emotional narrative that she wants to see over time? And with that, we followed up and did some behavioral discovery work and understood things like fitting in versus other, and being real to myself. There's a lot of tension. Remember I talked about that autonomy with her? There's a lot of great tension in this space. Or this idea of large companies give me value, but small companies give me purpose. And that's kind of this tension. I love discounts and I love value, but I also like this idea of giving purpose to myself. Playing it safe in life versus being free to discover what I truly want to do with my life, and ultimately doing the right thing versus doing what I'm supposed to do. And so therefore, we wanted to make our values and our belief systems built around authenticity, heritage, originality, purpose, and optimism, which led to actually our brand story, to being true to Phil's values and being authentic to the foundation that he has built his company on at Carolina Fine Snacks. Showcasing our compelling story to bring it to life fully, being quick and unique in our flavors, and using exotic combinations. You'll see some of those combinations. I put bags of Wicked Crisps here in the audience. You can see some of these flavors because it's purposeful on what Phil designed for these. We found alignment between our beliefs and the causes she cares about, and ultimately showing passion for food. We didn't want to take ourselves too seriously, but we're serious about the nutrition. Phil's incredibly serious. He wasn't kidding when he said he wants to change eating habits of Americans. So what we did is we went off back down in Dallas, and we did a lot of ideation to build a brand around 3 pillars. Pillar number 1 being fun and honest personality. 2 is being convenient and genuine nutrition. This is not a better for you snack. He wants it to be nutrition, and it's actually servings of vegetables. And also delicious and tasting, no compromise. This idea of being all 3 of those things, which led us to Wicked Crisps, deliciously deceptive nutrition. From a behavioral sciences perspective, we knew we needed to activate her goal around this idea of autonomy and being unique and not being held to just one version of myself. I'm more than just one version of myself. So we built this into the brand name and the logo. The idea of Wicked with the halo above it, a tension between good and evil, if you will. Crisps, the wicked from the crisp with the devil tail, right? So there's a blending of good and evil for a sense of autonomy on that brand, and also using oblique orientations and this energetic font to try to drive promotion priming. So this idea of deliciously, deceptive, nutrition, energy from left to right and creative drives energy. It's a promotional prime. So what you want to do is we wanted to see energy going from left to right in our taglines. That's why we use this version of cursive. And then we had to go find an illustrator. We interviewed 3 to 4 different illustrators. We didn't have that in-house for sure. And then we had to start thinking about, once we found the right illustrator, well, how do we bring this to life? So you see here, we kind of version number 1, this blending of angels and demons, right? Played around with that for a little while. Went into this little phase you'll see starting in 2, with this idea of kind of animals and humans. I don't know, we kind of got a little tired, I think, one night looking at that. And then we kind of went into the next round here, and we started doing this got into this Wolverine thing where we're all kind of part animal and part person, this evolutionary idea. And then over down on 6B, you'll see, we kind of went into the Beauty and the Beast, right? Because that was right, my son was actually just getting into a little bit of Beauty and the Beast. So we went down this pathway for a while, and then we got into kind of number 7, this idea of, kind of Rome and Greece. And ultimately, we ended up here with, we call her Lady Dooley here. And the idea here was that we integrated behavioral design cues in from the brief into the design of this. So the idea is we activated autonomy motivations. We blended good and evil so that she's ultimately all things. There's two sides of the same person, but they're in a very unique form, right? And you can almost see that they could be sisters, but maybe not. You know, there's like sharp edges over to the kind of the bad side, and then like this softness and rounder eyes around the good side. Very distinct traits that she has, but they're sharing features. We blended the hair on purpose. For a while, we had an amulet that she was going to wear, but then instead of that, we kind of put this kind of these leaves. She's sharing a same neckline. The idea is trying to promote autonomy as a promotion. And ultimately, health on the left, taste on the right. And then on the promotion side, activating promotion regulatory focus. I need energy to go from in, out. That's promotional priming, right? So the idea was, you saw in the other previous versions, we had people looking at each other. I needed actually people to be looking away in our creative, because I wanted to do energy, or take energy to prime promotion, and used abstract illustrations. So then we had to actually design these types of things into the packaging. Again, I have packaging out there for you. You guys should open them up if you're hungry. But the packaging was designed to also do the same thing. It wasn't just the outside of the packaging on these flavors, but it's also the copy as well. So you'll see in the copy, we activated goals: wicked taste, or wicked good nutrition, and wicked great taste. Deliciously naughty and refreshingly good. I mean, right there, I'm trying to show that you can be both. On priming the need, there's something magical about having it all in one crisp autonomy. You can have it all. You don't have to compromise. Framing the choice, this is again about promotional priming: transported, frolicking, infinite, and then add zesty, all promotional primes. And then triggering the behavior, we used endowment effect, so I wanted to make sure that she's feeling this is hers to lose. And the idea is you having it all, your taste buds sing, your head. Ultimately, we integrated this through digital. We did their website design, packaging design, brand logo, all that. We started doing displays and things for shows. And then ultimately, we even started doing some in-store executions with messaging. Here's the results, guys. For us, it's a really, really big deal. And it just launched in February 2017, and that was just at a trade show. At that trade show, they were able to sell it into about 150, 160 stores. But then within just 4 months, we're at now 4,000 stores currently in the US, 4,500 stores that we've been promised to go into, and another 4,000 stores by the end of this week. We should know whether we got into. I keep saying we because I feel like I'm a part of this company, but we should be in those stores. The whole point of it is I think it's a pretty good product for what it is. It's very, very nutritiously sound for you, but the idea is the buyer is saying that, you know what, you're bringing energy to the health and wellness category. We love the packaging and this whole idea of being true to this consumer and designing behavioral interventions inside of this whole thing. It actually inspires them at least to buy this. So I'll end on this, the idea. I believe wholeheartedly that for people in this room, if you're a researcher, our future rests in not only understanding for behavioral change, but designing for behavioral change. And with that, thank you very much.